Sarah Carter had always been the underdog. Fresh out of college, she stepped into the sleek, intimidating office of Henderson and Company, a Fortune 500 company, and a place where power was a game played by people with money, influence, and ambition. But Sarah was different. Quiet, focused, and determined to prove herself. Or so she thought. From her first day, the rumors buzzed. "She's just an intern," some whispered. "She'll never make it past the reception desk." Others snickered behind her back. The senior staff, especially the men in the room, nodded in her direction, once in a while with a dismissive smirk when she dared to speak up or present ideas during meetings. Sarah's ethnicity and her quiet demeanor made her invisible to most of her colleagues. They saw her as just another face in the crowd, an obstacle to ignore, a token to overlook. But Sarah wasn't about to be overwhelmed by their neglect. She worked late nights unnoticed, edited reports she found full of errors, and drafted proposals that she quietly sent to her boss, Mr. Jacobs, a manager who was known for his integrity, yet was often too cautious to challenge the status quo. Months passed, and Sarah's work ethic began to earn her respect from her boss. Mr. Jacobs saw her potential but dared not bring attention to it. The company, however, was marching toward a big announcement, the promotion of a new vice president, a role that would mold the company's future. That morning, Sarah sat at her cubicle, reviewing her notes and preparing for the next project. Her coworkers, as usual, ignored her presence, chatting loudly about who they thought would be chosen and how they weren't cut out for executive roles. Even some of her most senior colleagues, ironically, looked past her, convinced she was destined to stay invisible forever. Suddenly, the CEO of Henderson and Company, Mr. Bennett, called an emergency all-staff meeting. The room, usually filled with chatter, fell silent as he announced, "Today, I want to publicly recognize someone who has shown exceptional dedication, someone who has surpassed expectations and proved that talent knows no color or position. Please welcome our new vice president, Sarah Carter." The room erupted with stunned silence. Whispers rippled among the crowd. Some eyes widened in disbelief, others narrowed in skepticism. Sarah froze. Her heart hammered in her chest as she blinked away tears. She hadn't even been told she was being considered. Yet somehow, she had made it. Her coworkers stared in shock, exchanging looks of disbelief. Mark, a senior manager with a reputation for arrogance, scoffed loudly. "Who, Sarah? The intern? No way." Their words cut deeper than any steel blade. Sarah, with trembling hands, stepped forward. Her voice was steady, but inside her mind, she felt a storm of emotions: shock, disbelief, and a flicker of pride. She looked directly at her colleagues, many of whom had underestimated her from day one. "In this company," she began softly but confidently, "they told me I wouldn't be enough, that I was just an intern, that I didn't belong in this room. But I learned that your assumptions don't define my worth. I've worked harder than anyone here, behind the scenes, silent but steady, proving that resilience and dedication can break through even the highest walls. I don't want this moment to be just about me. I want it to remind everyone that talent, perseverance, and integrity will always win in the end." The room fell silent. The irony was thick. Here were the very people who had looked past her, dismissed her ideas, and treated her as invisible, now forced to accept that she was their future leader. The days that followed were a blur of media headlines and social media buzz. Sarah's story made waves, not just because she was promoted, but because her rise was a defiant symbol that the underdog could and would defy the odds. But the real story was only beginning. Unbeknownst to everyone, Sarah wasn't just an ordinary intern. She had secretly uncovered damaging evidence of corruption within the company. Information she had only recently discovered. Evidence that, if exposed, could bring down the corrupt leadership she was now about to lead. The powerful people who once underestimated her quietly began to panic. If she knew the truth, Her influence could become a threat, one they would have to silence. But Sarah, with her newfound position and unwavering resolve, wasn't ready to back down. One evening, she sat alone in her new office, flipping through files, the evidence now in her possession. Just then, her phone buzzed with an anonymous message. "You don't belong here, Sarah. Keep your head down, or we'll make sure you regret it." Her heart quickened. The irony was biting. Sarah stared at the ominous message flashing on her phone, her heart pounding like a drum in her chest. The quiet hum of her office suddenly felt deafening. She wasn't naive. She knew how dangerous this game had become. The very people who had doubted her, the ones she now trusted to lead, were hiding dirt that could ruin everything if exposed. She had defied expectations once, but now she was caught in a web of power, corruption, and deception. The promotion to vice president was supposed to be her victory, her moment of justice. But beneath the celebration, shadows were lurking, ready to strike. As she sifted through the documents she'd uncovered, proofs of embezzlement, illegal dealings, and hush-money payoffs, she realized that her ascent had only been the beginning. The real battle wasn't just about earning respect. It was about surviving the storm brewing around her. That night, Sarah made a choice. She would not be silenced. She had to act, not just for herself, but for Evelyn, for the countless others who had suffered beneath the corrupt regime of Henderson and Company. She saw the evidence now in her hands as her weapon, proof that could dismantle the entire empire built on lies. Suddenly, her office door creaked open. She froze. A figure stepped inside, a man she didn't recognize at first, cloaked in a dark suit and wearing a cold, calculating expression. "I wouldn't play with fire if I were you," the stranger whispered, voice low and dangerous. "You think you're a hero? You're just a pawn in their game. You don't understand how deep this goes." Before she could react, he held out a small recorder. "This is just the beginning. If you do something reckless, this goes straight to the board. And trust me, they won't hesitate to bury you." Sarah's eyes widened. She saw the glint of truth behind his words. This wasn't just an ordinary threat. Someone was watching her, waiting for her to make a mistake. Fear didn't grip her. Her resolve only hardened. She clenched her fists. She could see now that her victory was more fragile than she thought, and far more dangerous. "Who are you?" she demanded, voice trembling but steady. He smirked. "Let's just say I'm someone who cares about the right side of this story. But right now, I'm warning you. Play carefully, or you'll burn everything you fought for." With that, he vanished back into the shadows, leaving Sarah alone with her racing thoughts. The walls around her suddenly felt colder, the stakes higher than ever. The evidence she held was powerful, yet the danger of wielding it felt even greater. She knew her enemies wouldn't back down easily. In fact, it was clear they would come after her, at any cost. She had crossed a line they couldn't ignore, and now her life was on the line. The next morning, Sarah arrived early, prepared to face whatever storm was coming. She knew her life was about to change forever, but she was ready, or so she believed. As she stepped into her office, the same shadowy figure was waiting, this time directly behind her, hands in his pocket. He looked her straight in the eyes and said softly, "You've made yourself a target." There's no turning back now. Before she could speak, her phone buzzed again. A new message alert. This time, the words froze her blood. "You're running out of time, Sarah. The truth is closer than you think, and if you want to survive, you'll have to choose, quietly or loudly." Her stomach clenched. She looked around. The office was eerily quiet, almost too silent. Every clock felt like it was ticking louder, counting down to an unknown disaster. Someone had revealed her secret to the wrong people. Someone was plotting to silence her, and she had mere hours to act. Her mind raced. She could shut everything down, hide the evidence, and pretend she never saw it. or she could go public, trusting that the truth would set her free, no matter the cost. But both paths carried tremendous risk. As she hesitated, she felt a cold shiver run down her spine. Someone behind her, someone she hadn't noticed before, was staring at her with a knowing smile. It was a face she recognized. But the name... And then, the screen flickered. A new, shocking image appeared. A familiar face, smiling calmly and holding a familiar object. A weapon. Sarah's breath caught in her throat. Someone she trusted. Someone she thought she knew. To be continued. Asterisk. Who is the mystery figure holding the weapon? Will Sarah survive the night, and what secret will be revealed? Subscribe for more videos.